The title of today's essay is I'll Raise Your Blood Diamonds, and I'm all in with conflict gold. And this is a story that is built around some of the most horrible human beings not located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This is the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, in Sudan. And this is a Islamist, militant, mercenary group. And that's a lot of word jumble all at once. But they came together in the 2010s, and they are mercenaries for hire that are now specializing in providing security for the people that are exploiting gold and gold that is off of the regular markets coming out of the Darfur region of Sudan. Sudan, the criminal organization element of it is of course reminiscent of the Trump administration, and they are connected. The Trump and the Trump administration is connected to Sudan in a number of ways that I'll just touch on here. Sudan, specifically South Sudan, is one of the destinations for deporting immigrants captured in the U.S., regardless of whether that particular immigrant has any connection to Sudan. It's just it's a truly desperate place. And along with Uganda and Eswatini, there are a number of countries that have signed agreements with the U.S. to accept deportees. But since the ham-handed process is rolled out, Uganda and other countries have begun to say, no thanks. We're not down with this. As a matter of fact, Uganda specifically said no to the Trump administration suggestion that they were going to Mr. Abrego Garcia. The Trump administration was threatening to send him to Uganda, and they said no, because the Uganda government realized that there was a valid and verifiable offer to take him in Costa Rica. So those agreements are kind of crumpling under their own weight now. Sudan is still in on that because they have to be. They need the hard currency, and there's corruption. So there's a connection there. The really interesting and worrying infrastructure, the financial infrastructure underpinning this conflict gold, is UAE and KSA, United Arab Emirates, and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This is a lot of acronym word jumble, because this rapid support force, they're not supporting anything except themselves violently, and they'll attack any group that is not aligned with Islamist goals. They are racist in their own respect, but they're more likely to victimize and kill Christians than anyone else, although there haven't been widespread reports of that happening, except out of the Trump administration, and a lot of that is bullshit, like their justification for the recent Nigerian strikes, right? But it's the interesting dynamics. It's kind of like the girls are fighting, right? So the two regional superpowers that control all of the legal and illegal activity are UAE under MBZ or MBZ, as you'll often hear in the news reports, because many of the reports are BBC and English uh, news channels. And of course, our dear friend MBS in KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And they were working they were being in a cooperative endeavor to support the RSF, this terrorist Islamist militant group. And the way that they control in Darfur and in other parts of Sudan is through, not surprising, through terror to to gather up as much of the gold as they can and sell it on the gray markets, and all of that activity, and where the gold is further refined and made ready for sale and wider distribution. That's all in the UAE. And the UAE, of course, MBZ wants to separate himself from that whole dirty, nasty business because the RSF, what their method of operation is to go into villages, murder all the men and boys, and rape all of the women and kill half of them. So it's a terror organization that follows a very specific playbook. And as you can imagine, that sort of terror is very effective. But there are estimates, most recently reconfirmed again in the New York Times in the last week, that the RSF is responsible for murdering as many as 100,000 Sudanese. And part of this is ethnic violence that goes back some number of years. But a great deal of this is in service to the UAE and now to a lesser extent KSA, because KSA is stepping back. There's also they were frenemies in Yemen. Fighting the forces that were supported by Iran in Yemen. That was another proxy war, and you had the Sunni Arabs on one side, and you had the Iranian forces on the other, uh, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and that's still ongoing. And they fight each other, and then they shoot missiles into Israel, and then they regroup and collect more funds from their benefactors, and then continue on with a new terrorist operation to sow dissent and misery among their population. Sudan, as you know, has as much hunger and misery as any place on earth. And so to layer this on top of that these poor people who are just trying to scratch enough to have one meal every few days and to keep their children alive. Um, the added insult to injury, of course, is the Trump administration's assault on programs that feed the poor and provide affordable medicines for the poor, USAID, and that you will see reports that, or certainly from little Marco Rubio's mouth when he's not empire building in the Caribbean, he will say that, oh no, well, we turned that back on. USAID, we were just making a sober, intelligent assessment of a corrupt program that the Biden administration allowed to run, and the same bullshit. But what they did was they killed everything and brought back 16% or something like that. And particularly as it applies to Sudan. So these are desperately poor people who now have a harder time getting food, clean drinking water, and medicine. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough to fill your day with delight in Sudan, you are being used as pawns to engineer the smuggling of gold to the UAE through Chad and through Chad to the UAE. So really rich people can get richer. I know that this is not the first time you've heard that story. There are lots of parallels to our country in the early part of the 1900s, robber barons and otherwise, and repeated, on blast by the Trump administration, because the 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 two men benefiting the most from relationships to KSA and UAE right now are more than two men, but let's just say the Trump kids, right? So Jared Kushner, along with Steve Witkoff's children, Donald J. Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and perhaps young Barron is getting involved, that these folks, in addition to the corrupt $2 billion fund float in their crypto business by the pardoned terrorist advocate CZ, that these guys are getting incredibly wealthy. This is essentially the KSA and UAE are siphoning funds to Donald Trump through the kids because there's plausible deniability. Like, we're not paying Donald Trump for anything. We're in business with his brilliant children. These quintessential financial wizards that on their off days are negotiating peace on behalf of the Ukrainians. No, they're not. They're making money hand over fist, and I'm sure that they're getting their plane tickets ready for Venezuela, because that's the next target of double-fisted exploitation will be Venezuela. So lucky for them. Imagine you're a Venezuelan citizen, and you've lived through the corruption of Hugo Chavez and nasty Nick Maduro, and all of a sudden your white knight rides into Caracas, a white horse with a golden plated armored warrior in the personage of Donald J. Trump. And you're like, oh, great, the police. When you're essentially going to trade one bad guy for an entire team of bad guys who are better financed than the former president. Right? And we're still going to see. I don't know how long he'll be in custody. Is there a sweetheart deal? Is he making payments out the to get out the back door? Is he going to get a pardon? How is that all going to work? And a lot of questions in Venezuela as to whether Ms. Rodriguez, the now president, is going to be essentially functioning as a. I mean, what lessons has South America learned about being used as puppets for Washington D.C. over the years in Chile, in Paraguay, in uh, every country, every country in South America, and so now this Ms. Rodriguez is going to have to be parroting the words of Marco Rubio in order to keep the generals on side and keep the corruption to a level that is manageable, but not so much that Trump loses control of this. And then the American people make a value judgment that we have, by the end of January, we will have spent well in excess of $1 billion on this Caribbean adventurism, right? And Trump will say that we're capturing oil tankers, we're keeping those, we're going to sell those, and that money will go back to the Venezuelan people. We're going to improve the oil infrastructure, which needs improving. It's in desperate need of modernization because, as we talked about yesterday and before, they're struggling to pump out 1 million barrels a day when their potential is 3.5x that. But that's with 10 years of infrastructure repair and expansion, and and the money will be flowing. And how does Donald Trump, because he'll be getting a rip from that, or his family will, long after he's gone. How does he ensure that the price of oil stays at a level where those revenues, the revenue stream, will continue? Well, like we talked about yesterday morning, by suppressing clean energy technology, right? So you don't want a whole bunch of solar and wind coming online in the United States and elsewhere, because guess what? It ain't cheap to do that, but eventually it's a lot cheaper, and it's ding, keyword sustainable. One of the words that we almost want to throw away with last year, just because it's overused and often misused. But by the wind we got that solar, sun for now. We have it. You know, so that's going to be it's the way. And with the data centers eating up all of our electricity, I mean all of it, in the very near term, we need those other options. And Trump is stepping on the development of that technology in order for his friends in oil, both domestically and in the Middle East, to continue, and not least of which is Vladimir Putin, to continue to have a steady stream of income. One last callback to Darfur and Sudan is that the other group that's kind of running around and almost in the background is the rebranded um, elements of the Wagner Group, which is the Russian state security operated mercenaries that have their dirty fingers in just about everything bad going on in the universe, and they're heavily involved in Africa, right? So they do, I mean, war crimes. They do war crimes getting right out of bed in the morning. I mean, they are dedicated to war crimes. So Yes. So I will. I will try to tie it up around there. Keep an eye on the dynamics of UAE with MBZ and KSA with MBS, word soup, and how the when the girls are fighting, a lot of people are gonna die, and they're not the rich people that live in palaces in Dubai or in Riyadh. You know, it's the as always, it's the poor people on the ground in Sudan, the poor people on the ground in Venezuela. You know, the U.S. government has killed 150 people in those attacks on the boats. And yesterday morning, when they made the attack into Caracas and in Aragua State and some other places, other military bases and anti aircraft and radar that they hit to make the skies safe. They killed upwards of, as of right now, according to the New York Times and other sources, they killed 80 plus people on the ground in Venezuela to do this bloodless operation. Now, you could say that it's the price of keeping American troops safe if you're arguing that American troops needed to be there in the first place. So that's a value consideration that you're going to have to come to that conclusion based on what your views are on foreign policy and whether the U.S. government should be doing selective acts of extracting leaders of sovereign countries. Maduro, bad guy. Many bad guys out there. But is that what you elected a U.S. president to do? The MAGA movement, the America First, which is sort of the Nazi subdivision of MAGA, were screaming about no more foreign wars, and now Donald Trump is finding new ones to do every week. So congratulations, that's your guy. And if you got what you wanted, then the money you spent for the vote was worth it to you. But it ain't American. It's anti-democratic. But those things are, over time, those words, the meaning of those words evolves with the times. People's priorities change. But I would argue that wholesale corruption as a governing principle, in the end, everything goes to shit. You can read, there was a book written, you may have heard of it, 1984, George Orwell, and other books that when truth is stranger than fiction, that the widening gyre the center cannot hold, and when there's corruption injected into it, as Donald Trump does each and every day, then the center cannot hold, and everything comes apart. So, a cheery thought: murder, mayhem, and systematic rape as a weapon of war in Darfur. Cheery Sunday subjects, but it is the world and it is the truth. So you have to look straight at it, or if you don't look at it, then you're complicit. Right? So enjoy and have a beautiful evening, and we will catch up with you tomorrow. Thanks very much.